I think that you're gonna laugh at this. I, I have my phone charger like on the desk over here, so I was wrapping it up. A poor job I did of that, and I was putting it in my pocket. And as I was putting it in my pocket, you know what I pulled out? Liam's pacifier. That's what I pulled out. I I don't know why that's. I put my hand in my pocket. I said, "What's in there?" And I said, "Oh, that's what's in there." Welcome back, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, you never know what you're going to find in your pockets, apparently, when you have a kid. Thank you so much for being here, for clicking on the video, as today we're diving into the Michael Schenker group. We're going to be listening to the track Lost Horizons. This is coming off of the album, the Michael Schenker group, debut studio album released in 1980. We're giving this a listen because this was suggested and requested by Will. Will, thank you so much for the request. Thank you so much for the support. I truly appreciate that. Now, we haven't really listened to Michael Schenker. His name looked familiar. I suppose on one hand, we have listened to one song from UFO, of which he was a part of. And he has worked with Scorpions, but not on any of the music that we've covered from them. So not so much of a too much of a knowledge with him, but let's go ahead and see what he's cooking up on his solo work, or on the work that's, really formulated around him. There's also a random fly, like the tiniest little fly. It's just flying around. Okay. Without being said, I say we dive into it. I say we talk about it after. I say we hopefully have a good time and let the music speak for the rest. It's also the final track on the album, just to keep that in mind. Here we go. Scared me. That's a Trans-Siberian-esque orchestra kind of. That's nice and heavy.
I can hear the voice of death is shouting in my ear, making war, making love. You know what I'm thinking of. How many times the tracks are set. You can't remember and I can't forget. Can you see me now? Can you feel the pain? Can you heal the scars on me?
That's really nice and heavy.
Within my soul, each time.
There's a gnarliness to it. That's like Rainbow. Now that I'm listening.
Cries of hunger sound again. My tears of shame cut like a knife. How can I justify this life? Can you see me now? Can you feel the pain? Can you heal the scars on me? Life within my heart, hope within my soul. Each
On me. pleasure, I'll tell you that. This is this. You know I love the fret list. What a great come down from such a high.
My mind is searching for reasons why and time to leave or die. If we had now what we had then, lost horizons might be torn again. Can you see me now? Can you feel the pain? Can you heal the scars on me? Life within my heart, hope within my soul.
My feet sweating. Drumming took a new pattern. And those are tasty drum fills too. And that's how we ride out. I see some things. I see some things. Let me I almost press the end record button. Jeez. Let me walk you through myself, right? Not familiar with the band at all, so I had the lyrics pulled up before, but now I'm moving over to the Wikipedia article so I can link the personnel and give credit rather to this awesome track. So I do one of these. I pull up the Wikipedia article. Okay, Michael Schenker, he's playing the guitar brilliantly. I'm looking Gary Barden on the vocals, fantastic. Come on. Come on. When I saw Simon's name pulled up here, I said, that that explains so much. So much. This is a brilliant, brilliant track. And I'm adding it onto my general playlist because it absolutely has a place there. This was, I think that this was a 5 out of 5 song. There's no part of this that was a 4. This was a great track. I love how heavy it is I mean, it reminded me of Rainbow in the verse and in parts of the chorus as well, in that heaviness, kind of classic metal kind of era, and especially vocally. Barden. Let's look at his Wikipedia article. I can't say I've heard of him, or at least I don't remember him if we have. Best known for working with Michael Schenker Group. Listen, he was brilliant. He was asked to leave the group and was replaced briefly by former Rainbow frontman Graham Bonnet. Okay, so there is a little bit of a somewhat Rainbow connection. His singing was fantastic because he has the range to pull it off, but it's not just about hitting those higher notes or, it's soaring as well, but still maintaining that grit in there, that rock. And in this case, I would go as far as to say that metal sound from this era. I think he sounds absolutely fantastic, and it's still very melodic and catchy, very fluid as well. His singing was great. Every single person involved in this track was great, and we're going to go through each of them. I mean, he doesn't need an introduction, but Simon Phillips. He got me air drumming over here. I love in metal like this, or in a riff-based song, of which a lot of metal is, right? You take a riff, you build on it, and you add everything else around it. I love how with this specific riff pulled off by Michael, how there's so much room left. Left for what? Left for the other band members, and in this particular case, Simon Phillips on the drums. Because all of those fills that he brings in are not just heavy and, let me bring you guys back up. Not just heavy and, working so well with the momentum of the song, but they're also creative. For example, that one where he starts adding the double pedals at the end and it starts splashing on the hi-hats. That's very I think that's very very creative. It's not just like your standard hard rock or heavy metal kind of fills. Like there's some juices flowing in his mind and thinking like what to do. And I feel like Simon Phillips is one of those drummers that he can just do that on the fly without a thought. He just comes up with these fills that make you feel something. And I really enjoyed what he did here. And knowing that it's Simon Phillips here, like that connects the dots to like his work with Judas Priest. And, I would say arguably, it's not arguably, it's my favorite album from them with Sin After Sin. And I think that his drum work in that album, as we went through it, is out of this world. And he brings that aspect here into the Michael Schenker Group, and brilliant, just great. You have Mo Foster on the bass. Let me bring you back here. Mo Foster on the bass. Can't say I've heard of him, but he has worked with many, many, many artists that we have covered. And there's a great chance that we've actually heard him, and I just never mentioned it. Look at all the people he's worked with. I really like his bass playing because it was, yes, in line with this kind of hard rock sound, but because especially it's earlier hard rock, and I would identify this as earlier heavy metal, I really like how there's this beautiful melodic aspect to it that plays outside of the main guitar riff, having a groove and a presence and an identity of itself, not just doubling up under the guitar to make the riff more powerful. Yes, that works in certain contexts, but I love in a context like this how there's a little bit more to it. Man, he's okay. Judy Zook is the first name I see that we've listened to in full. Okay, we've covered that album. He's worked with Phil Collins. He's worked with Gary Moore, Scott Walker. We haven't heard Climate of Hunter, even though I do have that one on my wish list. He's worked with a lot of people here, and I'm sure a lot of familiar names that you guys probably see as well. So his bass playing was just really nice. There was a certain fill. I didn't look at the time when it happened, but it was really, really nice in here. And then Don Airy on keyboards. Let's look at him. Don Airy on keyboards. Look at this. Came to prominence with Rainbow. There's some Rainbow connections happening here and many, many others, including Judas Priest as well. We should listen to some Judas Priest soon. Kind of missing them. Either way, I love how all of this plays. Can I pull up the track again one more time? Let's go through this piece by piece because I think that it's needed. Okay, some distant guitar, set the scene, set the tone, bring it up front. I like how before the drums come in, there's so much space in that riff so that you're trying to count when, the drums are going to come in. Like, come on. But you're trying to count when that is. But the space is so big and elongated, you don't quite have it. The drums come in, set that. That's straight. And man, do they set it straight. I love a slow, open riff like this, Yeah, there's times for speed and closing the gap, but I like, when the gap is not so minded.
Life was
listen to that real quick. Love the harmonies behind him, and then and I did not even talk about Michael because he needs no introduction in here. I mean, he needs an introduction to me, but like his guitar playing is sensational. The main riff, the leads coming out of the chorus, the solo eventually. We get some fretless bass later on, and his atmosphere behind it is really, really nice. I didn't even mention Foster's fretless there in the middle. This is an all-around, I think, perfect song. The solo's rough, heavy-handed. See what Simon does? Listen to Simon's voice. So, like, and at that point, right, 3 minutes in, honestly, it feels like the song could kind of wrap up there. So in my mind, on a first listen, I know we have several more minutes left, and I'm thinking, well, what are we going to do with that time? There, I was trying to find my... This is what I was trying to find. This is what we're going to do with our time. I like how instead of perhaps like a typical structure where it's verse, chorus, heavy guitar solo, you expect it at this point, and then go back to the chorus. It does that, but then we get into another break here when we have that fretless come in, setting a really great atmosphere from Foster. I love the fluidity of it. And then, of course, Michael's still there, creating some of those atmospheres, just looming in the back, echoing before we get back into it. And those vocals behind are so exciting and tingling. And then it comes out back in for a final solo. And we roll things out. And I'm bringing it back to Phillips for just a moment. During the reaction I mentioned, like near the end, he kind of puts down a marching pattern. And I was thinking, okay, we're changing the rhythm completely. And he's going to basically use that marching pattern. And I'm using that term marching pattern loosely. We're going to basically use that to create a new outro. And you know what? It doesn't. Because it's not like the rest of the music changes around that. Simon just pretty much said, I think that this is going to fit in here. And it's a big change in the scope and in the span of the music at that point. But man, does it work? Like, I'm very impressed with what everyone brings to this track. I love how heavy the bass is behind that bum, 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 bum. It's a really great one. I've stood in time, wind and rain. I have no feelings or name. But I can see, I can hear the voice of death is shouting in my ear. Making war, making love, you know what I'm thinking of. How many times the traps are set, you can't remember and I can't forget. Death is calling him, from what I'm gathering this. Can you see me now? Can you feel the pain? Can you heal the scars on me? Life within my heart, hope within my soul is dying. It's called Lost Horizons. Perhaps a horizon indicates, in a literal way, a beginning and an end, and a place to go to, a place to look forward to, a place to come from. But those horizons are no longer there. There's a feeling of apathy, a feeling of nothingness, and I think that's where he's getting to this voice of death is shouting in his ear. Bid farewell the works of men, when cries of anger sound again. My tears of shame cut like a knife. How can I justify this life? I think this is interesting. Bid farewell the works of men, when cries of anger sound again. The cries of anger could represent war, destruction, crime, things of that nature. And so in those cries of anger, in those crimes of war and tragedy, the works of men are destroyed. My mind is searching for reasons why, a time to live, or a time to live or die. If we had now what we had then, lost horizons might return again. So what did we have then, is the question. This could work on many different scales. This could work on a love song scale. And you know, he's just feeling very lost without this other person. Or it could work, of course, like I mentioned, kind of on a more global humanity kind of scale. But there's an outward pain, and then this one is very much internalized with the way that he writes here. You could really go in many different directions, I feel, with this particular track. Huh? This was a really fantastic one. I just noticed the Buy Me a Coffee's match my shirt. Let me know what you all thought. Of course, in the comments down below. Will, fantastic choice. This was really, really good. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for enjoying. I hope that you enjoyed this one as much as I did. How many projects has Simon Phillips been involved in? I feel like he shows up kind of everywhere. You know what I like? This is how you know when someone's in a lot of projects, bands, and working with different artists. When on the Wikipedia it says partial discography. They can't even fit him in Wikipedia. They can't even fit him.